watching Shalom TV, celebrating Jewish culture. Funding for Shalom TV has been provided by the following. And by viewers like you.
Jewish Education in Media is pleased to present L'Chaim, a program that highlights the people, issues, and events of importance to the Jewish community. Now here is your host, Rabbi Mark Golub.
Hello, I'm Mark Golub, and one of the things we enjoy doing most is introducing you to many of the most creative performing artists in the Jewish world. And that's why I'm so pleased to be able to welcome an amazing talent, a true star of the international stage, Dudu Fisher, who I bet many of you are very familiar with. Dudu virtually burst upon the scene when, without ever having performed in a musical before, won the wonderful role of Jean Valjean in the Israeli premiere of the musical Les Mis, which became the longest-running show in Israeli theater and virtually propelled Dudu to world stardom. Dudu was then asked to perform the role on Broadway and was the first Broadway lead to be excused from performances on Friday night and Saturday afternoon so he could observe the Shabbat. Dudu's performed for royalty in England, for American presidents. He was the first Israeli artist allowed to sing in the Soviet Union. And now Dudu travels the globe, entertaining audiences in countries everywhere. And you can bring him into your home on one of the more than 35 albums Dudu has recorded. And as the Russian television network celebrated its 10th anniversary on New Year's Eve, Dudu was kind enough to join us and just wow our audience with song and dance. And Dudu, it's a pleasure to be with you again, to have you sitting in that chair, and I thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to be here. I think maybe before we start talking, maybe we should make clear about the name Dudu.
Please do.
Because Dudu,
Absolutely.
So my real name is David. That was my
David.
given David. But it's my grandmothers. They were looking for a nickname.
Yes.
So it was Dovidl, then it was Dudale, then it was Dudu. And then it became Dudu. Of course, they never knew what Dudu was going to mean in America in years to come. So I got this name, but the real name is David. But I like my name. I mean, everybody remembers at least the name.
That is correct. And you are known internationally now as Dudu Fisher.
Dudu Fisher.
So if somebody said David Fisher's coming,
nobody knows.
Who the heck is that?
That's right.
Okay. So I want to talk first a little bit about you and your background. And first of all, where were you born?
I was born in Israel.
Where?
In Tel Aviv. My father came after the war to Israel. My mother came before the war to Israel, because my grandfather, from my mother's side, was a Zionist, and he left in 1932. He left Lithuania, and all his family, of course, were perished. I mean, nobody lives from this side of the family.
Sorry.
And my parents met in Israel, and I was born in Israel.
What are their names?
Michael. My father is Michael. My mother is Miriam. And
Are they both still living?
They both still living, thank God. Yes, I was just with them yesterday.
That is wonderful.
Yeah, yesterday I took them for a ride before I leave. Because I left the country yesterday. It's last night, so I took them to Miron, to the Rashbi, to the Kever Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai,
yes.
And we had a little prayer there and praying for their health, and it was great. I mean, to spend time together. We have a wonderful time when we're together.
Do you have any siblings, brothers, sisters?
I have one sister who lives in Baltimore, and she's married to a cantor who served together with me in the army, and his name is Avi Albrecht. I'm sure that many people know of him. He's a cantor there in Bet Tefillah, in one of the biggest temples in North America.
So you go to school in Israel. You're a typical Israeli kid?
I'm a typical Israeli kid from a religious family.
Yeshiva background?
Not religious, ultra religious, but kippah sruga, as we call it.
Yes.
Knitted yarmulke, as we call it in Israel. Yes, I went to yeshiva, but together with a regular school.
Okay.
In a place called Nechalim, which is right where we live in Petach Tikva. It's funny enough that one of my kids today is working there as a rabbi. So,
No.
but we'll
Wow.
come back
You
to
have
it.
a son who's a rabbi in Petach Tikva?
Yeah, he's in Nechalim. He's a teacher
That's
rabbi.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. How many children do you have?
I have 2 boys and a girl.
Very nice. Are they all in Israel?
They're all in Israel.
Okay, so you grew up in Israeli,
So I grew up
And
in
then
Israel.
you go
very
in the
typical.
IDF.
And then I go to the army.
and then you come out of the IDF. But wait, did you serve in a musical troupe
I
in the
served
IDF?
in a music. Yeah, I served in a
Okay.
musical troupe.
So you were musical from the time you were a child.
I can say that actually from the age of 14, 15, I discovered the love for music. When we were in the yeshiva and we formed a group of singers, we were like 7 boys who sang together, and we had some shows together. That was the first time when I discovered the stage and the applause and people liking you and coming to you and say shkoyech, after you sing, And that was actually the first. I started to sing much before, but it was like in a choir of a synagogue. My grandfather used to teach me how to sing a little cantorial music, and it was funny, because when I was a young kid, I wanted to be Elvis Presley. That was the kind of music that I was dying to sing. But after the army, I was singing once in a wedding like an amateur, and like every Jewish mother, my mother used to tell me, look, singing is okay, but it's for a hobby. It's not for a job. I mean, you have to have something in your hands, like every Jewish mother, And of course, she pushed me to learn dentistry. Dentistry, yeah. So I signed in for the University of Jerusalem for dentistry, and a couple of months before, there's a wedding of a friend of mine, and as an amateur, I was singing there a song. So after I finished to sing, a guy came over to me and says, hello, my name is Morris Hirsch from Winnipeg, and I just wanted to ask you, why are you a cantor? And I said, I'm not a cantor. He said, well, what do you do? I said, I'm going to become a dentist, I'm going to study dentistry. He said to me, are you crazy? With your voice, you're going to smell stinking mouths of other people for the rest of your life? I said, well, that's what he said, look, I'm a president of a synagogue, he said, in Winnipeg. And if you want to come for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, we'll pay you $5,000 and a ticket. I said, how much? He said, $5,000. Well, that was my first car in Israel. I bought my first car with the $5,000. And then I really knew, well, of course I forgot from dentistry, I really understood what it is, to be liked by, you sing all the time, but to get the recognition that people really like you singing, like it was in Canada, like in this synagogue, with all the mothers coming to me with Harriets and Shirleys, and this is my daughter, and this is, they said, that's not bad to be a cantor. It's also good. It's not Elvis Presley, but it's also something.
That is wonderful.
When you see people cry or laugh or applauding or giving you a standing ovation, this is there's no other feeling, nothing like it, and it's like it's before the check comes in, that
Absolutely
you get, and it's
right.
before this is the first payment that you get. And I remember when I used to be a cantor. I was a cantor in South Africa for 3 years, from 75 to 79. I was in South Africa, so I remember sometimes when you're really in good shape, it happens, and the notes are sounding like amazing and everything. And I used to finish a service, and people started clapping in the shul,
No.
in synagogue.
Orthodox shul.
Orthodox shul.
They're clapping for the Chazan.
And the rabbi used to go, hello, hey, it's not allowed to clap. It's a synagogue. It's not a theater. What's the matter? And in my heart, I used to tell him, let them clap, let them applaud. What's the problem with you, man? So I really knew that cantorial is beautiful, and I like it a lot, because this is really, I was born with it, with my grandfather teaching me. But I knew that I need to do something else.
But here you are now, And it seems like your life is going to be in the cantorate, not on the Broadway stage. So I've read a little bit about you, but I want you to tell the story. Tell the transition from Chazan to Broadway. Actually, you become first a star in Israel, but you become a star of the musical stage. How does that happen to Dudu Fisher?
Well, in 1986, I went to London for a cantorial concert. And it was a concert, a benefit concert for disabled kids, children. And I said, but I wanted to save money to the people who brought me in, you know. So I said, you know what, I'm not going to stay in a hotel, I'm going to stay with a family of mine. So I stayed with a cousin of mine, and I went in there, and, you know, we're talking. And I heard this music is playing, you know. And it's playing in the kitchen, it plays in the dining room, it plays in everywhere, it's the same. And I said to her, Shirley, what's this music? She says, listen, I went to see a new musical which just opened. And when I was sitting there and looking at the musical, I saw you in the show. I said, me, what am I going to do? I never saw a musical till then, you know, I never saw another musical in my life. She said, you have to go and see this. She picked up the phone and she sends me to see Les Miserables. And I'm sitting there, I mean, the curtain is opening and I see this guy, Colm Wilkinson, as Jean Valjean is coming out.
Tremendous performer.
And starting, what have I done, sweet Jesus, what have I done? Become a thief in the night, become a dog on the run, and have I fallen so far, and is the hour so late? Nothing remains but the cry of my hate, the cries in the dark that nobody hears. Here I stand at the turning of the years. And then bring him home. And the songs, and I'm crying, and I'm looking, and I said to myself, this is something that I want to do. And I can do it. Why shouldn't I try to do it? I stayed in London for another couple of days, and I saw the show a couple of more times. And then I bought everything, you know, to do with Victor Hugo. I didn't know who he was, you know, I never heard about. And I went to Israel, and I'm sitting with my manager a day later, and he says to me, you know, we have a concert in Argentina, we're going to Mexico. I said, look. That's it. I said, all I want you to do for me is now, look around the world, wherever Les Mis is playing, Les Miserables is playing, I want to audition, in English, wherever. He said, what's Les Miserables in Hebrew? I said, I don't know. So I ran downstairs to the bookstores, and I asked the lady there, excuse me, lady, what's the Les Miserables in Hebrew? She said to me, Aluvei HaChaim. I said, you have the book. I bought the book. I ran back to my manager. I said to him, it's called Aluvei HaChaim, and that's what I want to do. He said, Aluvei HaChaim, it's coming here to Israel next season in the Camry Theater just across the road in Dizengoff Street. I said, so what are you sitting here? Go get me an audition. He got me the audition, and I sang for them.
Do you remember that day?
Of course, this is a day which I'll never forget in my life.
Were you nervous?
Nervous? Are you kidding me? My legs were shaking. I don't know how I sang even. You know, I thought that I was so terrible after the audition. I thought that I was singing so bad, you know. So I go out from the audition, and he's waiting. My manager is waiting for me there, and I said to him, "No, what do you think now is going to happen?" He said, "They'll let us wait a couple of days, and then they'll call us. We'll see what to do." We came to the office, which is right across the street. We came back to the office. There was a telephone from the theater. Listen, we don't know what to do now because we thought to get somebody else instead of Jean Valjean, and now I don't know. The director will come from London and he will make the decision. Okay.
How old are you here?
I'm 36.
You're 36 when this happens?
Yeah. And it's the first musical I've never been on stage before in my life. Never took acting lessons in my life. And I flew off to Kutches. That's where I do. Maybe we'll talk about it later. And then it was Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur.
Yeah. So I'm getting a phone call, and there's actually a piece that I do in my shows because I was rehearsing with the choir, the prayer of Kol Nidre, the one I sang for you now. And in the middle of the rehearsal, the sound system went off, and they said, Cantor Fisher, phone call. So I went backstage, and I picked up the phone, and it was my manager from Israel. And he said to me, Dudu, they want you. They want you to come back for another audition for this guy who comes from London, and you have to be here a day after Yom Kippur because he comes for 24 hours. I said, how can I sing for him the day after Yom Kippur, after I'm singing a whole day in the synagogue? How am I going to sing for him? He said, well, take it or leave it. That's what it is. But they want you for the audition. And I went back to the choir, and I sang Kol Nidre, but all I heard in my mind was all the music from Les Mis, And so I'm doing a piece which is combined with Kol Nidre and songs. I dreamed a dream in time gone by, in the middle of the Kol Nidre. So I went back to Israel on Motzai Yom Kippur, on Yom Kippur night. I left back to Israel. I auditioned and I got the part.
You got the part.
I got the part.
You had no business getting this part.
That's true.
You had no experience.
That's true. So
you had never been on stage before.
That's true.
You had no business. And then you get the part.
And this is exactly what the theater people told this guy
Director?
who came from London, the director. His name is Stephen Pimblett. May he rest in peace. He passed away. But he said I want Dudu to be Jean Valjean. And they all told him, listen, maybe he sings all right, but he doesn't know how to act. He never took an acting lesson. He was never in another show. He was never on stage. How can you? He said, listen, I want him. So they said to him, okay, so till we start rehearsing, we'll give him a tutor and he will learn how to. He said, don't touch him.
Oh.
I want him as he is. He was something, because I know that I can act. After I did so many things in my life, I know that I could. And the truth is that acting is a natural thing. You can improve it. You can give hints. Like they tell you when you have to pick up a cup in a movie or in a movie, you can't just go like this and pick up the cup. You have first to see the cup, right? So you look, oh, there's a cup. Then you pick it up. But he knew that there is a talent there that he can, and he wanted to shape it. He wanted to work on me on this, and this is I got the part in Israel, and we did it for 3 years.
Were you just thrilled out of your mind?
I was nuts. I was going crazy. On
the
night when they told us that I got the part, I went to the theater, and me and my manager, and we were dancing around the theater.
I believe it.
And I bought myself a big ice cream, which I never eat ice cream. And it was like unbelievable.
It's your opening night in Israel. This is Tel Aviv?
In Tel Aviv, yeah.
Opening night, Tel Aviv, Les Mis, starring Dudu Fisher. Now Butterflies?
You're talking Butterflies. It was the most amazing experience of my life. And there were Butterflies. I have every show that I do. But this time it was very, very scary. Especially I knew that Cameron Mackintosh is going to be there. Cameron Mackintosh was the world producer of Les Mis and then Phantom of the Opera and Miss Saigon, whatever you think of.
Huge Broadway producer.
Huge Broadway producer. Of course, he lives in London. And he was there. And the amazing thing is that after the show, he came up to me and he said, I don't know, he said, I've never experienced something like when you sang Bring Him Home in Israel. And I don't understand the word because in Israel it's Elohai Shma Koli, it's not nothing to do with English. And he said, I know I didn't understand the word for me to sing, but I felt like the whole audience is praying for you. Is praying together with you. And this is what I want you to bring to Broadway. That's what he said. So I said, I beg your pardon? I said to him, I had to explain to him, that in Israel, he didn't understand, he didn't know it, that in Israel, every person who sits in the audience, every man or woman or child have something in the army, had somebody in the army, know somebody in the army that has something happened to him because, this is a very small country. Everybody knows everybody. And I said to him, this feeling you cannot bring to America because this is Israel. We live in wars. We live, since we were established in 1948, we are at wars all the time. And you know something that today when you sing Bring Him Home in America, it's like singing it in Israel. Because now when people are watching the coffins are coming from Iraq and from Pakistan, from Afghanistan, people know better what is Bring Him Home. The prayer, this prayer which was written by these two French people, and it's such a great prayer, Bring Him Home.
And he is talking about somebody who was in battle, in essence.
Exactly.
The man his daughter loves.
The
Yeah.
song is about Marius, who was
Yes.
going to marry
Yes.
his daughter.
Yeah, I get chills just thinking of you doing that song. It is one of the. Oh, it happens to be one of the all-time fabulous
Yeah,
musicals.
yeah, definitely. It's like
And you got to be the lead, doing some of the most wonderful classic male lead songs in
Yeah,
ever
definitely.
created for a musical.
definitely. I think that Les Mis, the story, the book,
Right.
and the
I
music
agree with
is
you.
one of the best
Absolutely.
musicals that were written in the 20th century.
You do come to America. You do it in English. But I meant to ask you one more thing. How did Israelis react to you? And you weren't anybody at the time. Did you become a somebody? Was there any resentment of your meteoric rise to stardom? How did the Israeli public and the Israeli artistic community react to you?
That's a very good question. First of all, the religious people who knew me before, my core fans, of cantorial music, because I was really building myself already a name of a cantor, established myself as a real cantor,
real chazan, a serious
a real
chazan.
chazan, and then I started singing Yiddish and Hasidic music, because I felt that cantorial music is dying out. And there's an explanation for this also, because, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, in the diaspora, in Poland, in before the war, Shabbat came, and the Jew who was working so hard all week long, put his only suit that he had, the only one that he had. He didn't have two suits, he had only one suit for Shabbat. Because the whole day he was sitting, working, and he would go to synagogue and would listen to these great, great cantors and choirs and rabbis. And he could sit there from 7 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, because that was the shot that he got of culture. He was not allowed to go to movies, he was not allowed to go to theaters, he couldn't go to concerts, he didn't go, and maybe he didn't understand, but they weren't allowed to go. Times have changed, and today, you see our people are going everywhere. They're in the operas, the main donators of operas, the Metropolitan. Synagogue became today a thing that people want to go to daven, to pray, and go home. Synagogue today is not a concert hall. So the time of cantorial music, where you can express yourself and sing arias like, belt it out, is over. And I felt it then already, so I started to sing more Yiddish songs, more Hasidic music, more popular music. So these people who really liked me a lot, as a cantor and as a Yiddish singer, says, what the hell is he doing? What is he going to sing in a theater with girls on stage and this? He's going to touch a girl? That was bad. For the rest of the people, it was an amazing, it was like a star was born, and I became a star. I had paparazzi standing outside of my doors, which I hated it. I hate it till today, to see what I'm doing, and where am I going, and where we're living, which restaurant am I eating, and the community, the artistic community, was very nice. They received it very, very nice.
That's lovely to hear.
And because suddenly they saw something that can happen to anybody, like like a Cinderella, he came out from nowhere, nobody heard about him, and suddenly he's a star. And then I went to Broadway. And in Israel, if you do Broadway, and it's not a Jewish show, it's not like, with all respect, to Chaim Topol and to my friends, my Israeli
exactly.
friends, what we're doing. Chaim did so many other stuff also, but his main thing is, the Fiddler on the Roof,
Yes.
which is a Jewish show, of course.
Yes.
And so here you come, and they get an Israeli guy, a Jewish guy, who doesn't play on Shabbat and the high holidays and any holidays, and he receives a contract which is like, says in the contract that Dudu Fisher is not going to sing Friday nights and Saturday matinees and Jewish holidays because of religious reasons. It said on every playbill that people received, that I'm not going to be there for Friday night and Saturday night. And I think if you ask me as a Jew, this is my biggest pride. I'm more proud of the fact that I could stand upon it and get my contract without playing Friday nights and Saturday matinees and Jewish holidays, more than getting the part itself. You know what it is. It's like, and it gave people the feeling that you can make it also when you stand on your principles. You don't have to give up everything, in your life. You can. And the truth is that I had a very terrible 2 years, from the time that Cameron McIntosh told me that he wants me to be on Broadway, and I went to the papers, and told them the story, and everybody wrote big articles, Dudu goes to Broadway, and then started the problems with the actors' union and the union equity, and they said, no way, you cannot do such a thing. Yes, if you want to let Dudu go, you have to bring somebody else to do the show, not the understudy from the show. Excuse me.
What you mean is on the performances that you missed.
On the performances that I couldn't do, Friday night and Saturday matinees, usually they have an understudy from the cast. Not here. They wouldn't allow it to happen this year because they said that the guy who is in the cast is doing the show only if it's an emergency thing. Let's say you got sick,
Yes.
or you got in an accident or something, then you must have somebody in the cast that to do the show. Here they made him pay another guy to come do Friday nights and Saturday matinees, a star salary, which is a lot of money.
Yes.
And the guy couldn't do anything else during the week.
That's correct. This was meant to be a burden on the producer
Exactly.
as a way to deter him from
Exactly.
bringing an Israeli to Broadway.
No, not only in Israeli, to make something like this, no Friday nights and Saturday matinees. This was unacceptable to them. And they couldn't accept such a thing.
But you won.
And not me, I didn't won. It's Cameron McIntosh won it. And I asked him many times. I said to him, Cameron, can you tell me why did you do it? I mean, you had to pay money. So first of all, he says, don't worry about it, because he knew. He used to call the chosen. I knew that all the chosens are going to come again. Because all these people who saw the show already, now they'll hear that Dudu Fisher is coming from Israel.
So all the Jews will come again.
Exactly. And he knew it, and they did, of course. They wanted to support. Also, they wanted to support him. But he said to me, "I really did it because I love you." That was his answer, and I really I appreciated it so much, because he's a great guy, and what he did for me. I mean. By the way, it never happened till then.
That's
and
right.
It never happened since then.
Yes. I don't know if you know the story. It's an American Jewish story of a very, very famous baseball player named
Sandy Koufax, of course.
And Sandy Koufax, who, by the way, was not an overly observant Jew.
Yeah,
But for some reason, Yom Kippur comes during the World Series, and Sandy Koufax tells the Los Angeles Dodgers he's not going to pitch in the World Series. They win the World Series anyway, and Sandy Koufax becomes an icon to Jewish youth, a symbol of a Jew who says, I can do what any other American can do and still retain my Jewish identity and my sense of Jewish observance. You did the same thing. And again, I don't know if people who are not in the Broadway world appreciate how extraordinary it was that a Broadway lead was given Friday night and Saturday matinee off for religious reasons.
Yeah,
that's
the amazing thing.
It was amazing. But it was a statement that you were able to make that, to any Jew who understands it, becomes the equivalent of the Sandy Koufax saying, I won't pitch on Yom Kippur. It is a tremendous statement. And in some way, you made a contribution now to Jewish life that even transcends the specific show Les Mis in the Broadway stage. And it's just interesting to hear that it was Cameron who kept saying to you, no, don't worry. We're going to do it. I assume, by the way, you and your manager did say, if Dudu comes to Broadway, he can't perform on Friday night, Saturday.
Of course, that was.
And were you always to that point in your life,
Yeah.
Shomer Shabbat,
Yeah, I was
observant
always,
Jew.
yeah. I didn't invent it, just for this Les Mis.
Exactly.
It was something that all my life, I couldn't do it to my parents, I couldn't do it to my people, I couldn't do it to my kids, which I'm teaching all the time to observe the Shabbat. And I really believe that more than the Jews kept the Shabbat kept the Jews together. I really believe in it. And the Shabbat has something, look, we brought it to the world. I mean, nobody knew about a resting day in those times, Suddenly these people are coming with a resting day. What the hell is resting? What for? And now can you imagine, for me, Friday night, Friday evening, just 2 minutes before candle lighting, right? When I switch off the phone, when I take off the phone, and this quietness that when my wife is benching the Shabbos licht, when she goes like this and she's benching the licht, and suddenly there is peace in the world, it's like no phone calls, no emails, no you got mail, nothing. And it's like the best feeling that there is. This coffee that you drink before you go to shul on Friday night with your wife and with the paper, and you sit and you talk, and I really feel it. I mean, like a holiness.
Do a Shabbat nigun for me. 8 bars.
Shabbat nigun, there's so many, but I think maybe Shalom Aleichem Malachei Hasharet Malachei Elyon ay mi melech Malachei Hamelachim Hakadosh Baruch Hu. That's what we sing, when we come back from the synagogue and we sit around the table, and it's like, what can be better? I mean, to go to the theater, to work.
Nothing be better. We have to pause for one moment, and then we'll continue. You're watching the incomparable Dudu Fisher. Tell us all about how he became not only a Broadway star, a star of the Israeli theater, but you're getting a look into his soul and his Jewish neshama. I hope you enjoy it, and we'll continue.
It's been a season filled with highs and lows. See it all come to a climax in the season finale of From Date to Mate, premiering in May on Shalom TV.
In your eyes, the light, the heat, I am complete.
I wouldn't have to work hard. Yabba-dibby-dibby-dibby-dibby-dibby-dibby-dum.
Before we went on, we were talking off camera, and we were talking about Shalom TV. You were kind enough to ask me some questions about Shalom TV. And I said to you, there are a lot of people who watch all over America and Canada, Jew and non-Jew. And evangelicals, Christians who love Israel, watch Shalom TV a great deal. And you said to me you had a story to tell me.
First of all, I have, my father was saved by a non-Jewish family in the
know.
Ukraine. Yeah. The name is the Kvarchak family.
What happened?
Oh, well, that's such a story, really. My grandfather was very friendly with this Kvarchak guy, and he came to my grandfather when my grandfather was already in the ghetto, and he told him, "You know what they're doing to Jews. You know that Jews are not coming out from here alive. I want you to come with all your family to stay with us." And now we're talking about 16 people, 16 members of my father's family. And they dug a bunker right underneath the house. And in a bunker, 16 people, 16 members of my father's family were staying there for 18 months. 18 months. Now, you're talking about courage, right? I mean, sometimes when we say in Israel, ometz, what is courage? Well, so we say courage is when a platoon of soldiers, are standing, and there's a grenade thrown into the, and one is jumping on the grenade. He kills himself, but he saves all his friends. So I'm asking you now, this is a courage of a split of a second, right? It's a blink of an eye. I mean, somebody sees, boom, he jumps in that. I'm talking about courage of people who knows that if Germans are coming there, and there were Germans all the time there, the army was there all the time, they know that not only they kill the Jewish people that they found there, but they kill also them and their children. They had 3 kids. What do you call this? What kind of a courage is this? And my father's best friend was Alfred Kwarczak. My father told me once that Alfred brought him a pear. I was in the army when my father. He says, one day I was traveling with my father in the car, and he said to me, we're talking about Kwarczaks all the time. They were looking for them at the time. Then years later, they found them. They found the Kwarczaks. It's a long story. And my father told me, once Alfred brought me a pear to the bunker. And I said, well, okay, no, and then? And my father looked at me and he said, you'll never understand, eh? You can never understand what was a pear in a bunker where we were doing our needs, underneath all, everything was. So we found them afterwards, and we're supporting them with money, and we send them, and I brought Kwarczak.
But no, don't jump the story. Your father is 18 months underneath this house.
That's right.
Then what?
And then the Germans came in. The Germans were there, actually. My grandmother, the bunker was, well, if you want me to go into the story, I'll go into. The bunker was in the room where the animals, they had 2 rooms. One was for the people, one was for the animals. There was a cow, there were squirrels, there were rabbits. The idea was that they dug the bunker, the entrance of the bunker was underneath the cage of the rabbits. So when they picked it up, all the rabbits were on one side of the cage. When they put the gate down, the rabbits were running, so nobody could know that there's an entrance to the bunker. At one stage, because then I took my father to Dubno. Dubno was the name of the town, and we were looking for the house. We couldn't find the house, but my father told me where the house was. It was in a very strategic point. It was a very high hill, and you could see everything from there. And at one point, just a couple of months before the end of the war, before the Russians came in, my grandmother used to get out of the bunker, walk out of the window, walk around the house, knock on the doors where the Germans used to be in the same house. Their headquarters was there. My grandmother and the woman, the Mrs. Kwarczak, they used to get out. There were 2 young ladies, They went out, they walked around the house, and they were cooking and washing for the German soldiers. And then they stole some food, because they were cooking, so they stole some potato leeks and like this, and they brought it back to the bunker when they went down to the bunker for the night. The next morning, the same thing. I mean, it is like a story like that. You can write a movie, but you can write a movie about every Jew that went through the Holocaust. And still, my father till today says to me, we were in a Hilton. I mean, if you compare us to the people who suffered Auschwitz and Treblinka, we were in Hilton, he said. So I have this feeling, for non-Jewish people, I'm very close with. And now there's these evangelists, which I found out about them about 20 years ago. I'm going to Sweden and to Singapore, to places like this to sing for them. And about 6 months ago, I went to do a show for Victoria Hearst. You heard about the Hearst family, right? Okay, Victoria is Betty Hearst's sister, the famous Betty. Now, Victoria, she found the Lord one day, and the Lord told her to go to Colorado and to open an outreach center and to teach people in Colorado how to love Israel and love the Jewish people. So she went there, and she invited me to do a show. Her mentor is Billy Bram. She's a pastor from a place called Branson. Have you heard about Branson? Amazing. I'm really amazed. You never heard about Branson?
Never did.
Billy Bram, the pastor Billy Bram, came to me after the show, and after she saw what I'm doing, and I'm doing my show. I have a show which is called Jerusalem, which is 16 songs about Jerusalem in 6 different languages and stories and video about Jerusalem. And it's only about Jerusalem. And she said to me, you should come to Branson. And I said, exactly what you said. What is Branson? You said, who is Branson? And I said to her, what is Branson? She says, Branson is a little town in Missouri. You should go Google it. So I Googled it, and I see Branson.com. And then I went there, and I was amazed. I was there only 2 months ago, for the first time. It's a little shtetl of 20,000 people who gets every year 8 million Christian tourists. You get this? 8 million. I mean, Israel is getting every year 2.5 million tourists. Branson is getting 8 million tourists.
Because?
They have more theater seats there than Broadway. They really do.
What's going on there?
And Christian people are coming there to see shows. This is the Vegas of Christian people, Christian religious people. It has everything that you want, all kind of amusement parks, steamboats, trains that go around the mountains with food, lunches and things. But mainly it's shows. People are coming to Branson to see shows.
And she brought you to
And
perform?
I went, no, she said to me, you should come to Branson. Now I'm going to go to Branson. Because now I have my Jerusalem show is going there. So this year we're going to open it with 3 big shows there.
When?
It's going to be in the fall, in November. And then next year we're going to start now promote, because the season there is between March and December. And next year in 2012, we're going to be there for 3 or 4 months, you know, to do a show. And about Jerusalem. And why did I get this great feeling? I went to see a show in Branson. I went to see a show. And in the middle of the show, this guy is saying, I was amazed, I didn't know where he knew it. I mean, from the girl that works in the tickets, you know, she says to me, your name is Dudu? And she started making fun about my name, you know, Dudu, really? What kind of a name? Where are you from? And I said, I'm from Israel. He says, really? I didn't know that she's the wife of the guy who is on stage there, because they own the theater already, you see, because they have the show for 17 years, they're doing the show there. So the guy opens, he says, and we have a special guest here tonight. And I go, oh my God, he's talking about me? And he's taking it out, and he says, his name is Dudu, really? Dudu, what the name is it? Where are you from, Dudu? And I said, I'm from Israel. And the whole audience stood up, gave me a standing ovation just because I'm from Israel, and started clapping, you know, applauding. That was the minute I knew that this is a place to bring a show like Jerusalem about Israel and about Jerusalem to this place. So I'm very, very excited about this. Is a whole new project.
How exciting.
And it's very, very exciting.
I want to go back to the description of your father when he was being hidden. And, you know, his saying to you, which I think, although we can't understand, even you who is his son, we can't understand what it was like to endure living in this hellhole for 18 months. I want to know whether you believe at the moment your generation of Israeli is sensitive to the fact that Israel in some way is the transcendence of the Jewish people. And then I want you to tell me whether your children understand it. Does the next generation of Israeli appreciate the significance of Israel post-Shoah, that your father and you, already different generations with different understandings, but you do understand it and you appreciate it on a certain level? I want to hear you speak about what you think the Israeli people of your generation feel, and I want to know what you think the younger Israeli generation feels.
Well, you know, me as a second generation to the Shoah, to the Holocaust, certainly there's no way that I cannot feel that Israel is there, and every Jew in the world can feel safe because Israel is there. Because I would understand and know that without Israel being there, no Jew is going to be safe around the world. Not only Israelis, not only young Israelis maybe don't understand it, but a lot of Jewish people around the world don't understand it. They think that this is the way it is, that's the way it always was, you know. Well, it's not. This is not how it was always. We were prosecuted for thousands of years. I mean, we were killed, we were murdered, we were raped, just because we were Jews, you know. And people do not understand this. And Israel being there, there's no doubt that Israel is the rock that people can rely on. Now, when we sit at home and we talk about Israel, and when I talk to my kids, and my kids do understand it, because when I say, wow, what terrible times we go through now, what are we going to do now with all these things, you know? And my kids look at me and say, Dad, what are you talking about? This is bad times? You can't look at your life, you're like 50 years you lived, and say this is terrible times. You look in the perspective of 500 years from now. When was better? When were the Jews better than now? When was it a better time for Jewish people than now? When there was so much Bible, Torah learning in Israel more than now, and around the world, not only in Israel. When were Jewish people are so proud and come to Israel, visit Israel, you know, with no fear, and Israel still is one of the safest places in the world. And for people, when I say to people here, you know, some people say to me, you know, we were thinking to come for Pesach to Israel, but now after we saw what happened with Mubarak, we don't know what to do. So what are you talking about? What has it got to do with Mubarak? With Israel is safe, Israel is great, Israel is full with tourists, Israel is vibrant. Tel Aviv is a city like you've never seen a city like this around the world, you know, and Jerusalem is more holy than ever. I mean, it's beautiful to come and visit there, you know, to walk in those alleys of Jerusalem. You can feel the thousands of years, the thousands of history years. We have a problem in Israel with education. The general education in Israel is very poor. And young people, the young people who don't get I don't like to call it religious. I like to call it like roots, you know, like education with roots, education that will connect you to the land. Because if there's no roots there, I mean, what are you doing? What are we doing there? Then it's fine. I mean, we can live everywhere. I mean, it's no problem, you know, to go away, to come back, you know. But if you learn the roots that we belong to this country, that before we came to this country, it was nothing. There was nothing growing there. It was all desert. It was nothing. And look what we're doing today with the desert in the Negev. I mean, we grow things there with salty waters that all Europe, the flowers in the winters of Europe on their tables are Israeli flowers. The cucumbers and the tomatoes that we grow in the Negev on a sand that nobody could grow anything. It was a dead land. There was nothing there. And look what we did. I'm not talking about high-tech and things, you know, what we did. Could you imagine if we would have peace? If we would have peace and we wouldn't have to use so much money, you know, for tanks and planes and bombs, and if we would have normal neighbors, I mean, that we could live with, this country, I mean, would be unbelievable. But you know something? Sometimes I think maybe it is because of the war that we are so clever and we have to think all the time with our heads, you know, on the high-techs and the inventions and things like this. So if you ask me about the younger generation, if they understand, they don't. I don't think that they do.
That must pain you.
Very much so. Very, very much so. Because history repeats itself, and from what we see now, I see now these days, the same thing what Hitler did to the Jewish people, making us not legit anymore, you know, We are not legit people. We are cockroaches. We are nothings. That was the Hitler propaganda. That's what he did, so people could understand. To kill Jews is nothing. Exactly the same thing is happening now to us today, not to the Jewish people, but to the state of Israel. People think that if the state of Israel will not be there, there'll be peace in the world. Everything will be fine. There'll not be terrorists anymore. Nobody will attack America anymore. Nobody will attack France or Spain or whatever. Now there's going to be okay. Well, I got news for you. Because if Israel is not going to be there, God forbid, the world is not going to be quiet, because this is a cultural war. This is a war between the Islam, the Christianity, and the Jews are always in the middle, like always was.
Now talk to me one moment about peace. You said it would have been wonderful if there could have been peace already. Can there be peace now between Israel and the Palestinians?
No.
Because?
Because we have nobody to talk to. Because they told us all the time that they want us out from there. And we say, come, come, come. And they say again, we're going to kill you, Ahmadinejad and all his friends, right? And we say, come, 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 come to us. And the Hamas in Gaza are holding Gilad Shalit for 1,757 days now, okay? And I'm counting the days, like I'm counting the Omer, after Passover. And what? Who are you going to talk to? Somebody that is holding a kid, without letting nobody visit him, not the Red Cross and not an ambassador from one country.
Is the PA any different than Hamas?
I don't think so. They want to show as if they are. They're acting like if they are, but I don't think so. I really think that there cannot be peace between Israel and Palestinians, and I hope and pray that I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm. Do you have Palestinian friends?
I have Arab friends, not from the West Bank, but I have. Listen, I grew up with an Arab guy who is the cook of my parents in the hotel. We grew up together since 15 years old, and we have a great relationship.
We're meeting this time right now, shortly after some terrible things have happened to Israelis at the hands of Palestinians. Do you hate Palestinians?
No, I have no hate to any person alive. There's not you will not find a tiny little weeny bit of hatred in me to anybody.
Do Palestinians hate you?
I think so.
How is it that? And by the way, I asked this question.
And I'm not saying that everybody does.
Yes, I understand. I asked this question of many Israelis. I always get your answer. Do you hate Palestinians? No. Sometimes I say to myself, one of the most remarkable things about the Israeli mentality is that despite all the suffering that Israelis have been through, historically and now in the present, you still don't hate the people who inflict the pain on you. Why not?
I just can't hate people, I suppose. And look, I think that it's in our genes already, because we live with it. People started shouting now after what happened to the Fogel family, right?
Yes.
People came into the house and they slaughtered 2 years old. So now suddenly everybody is shouting. But listen, my grandfather, his neighbor was attacked when he was young, in 49 or 50, by Fadain. Fadain is like terrorists who came from Jordan to Israel. And they went into his neighborhood, and a house next to my grandfather, they killed the whole family. So, manishtana halayla ze mikol halelot. What has changed this time? There's nothing changed. Everything is stayed the same, and everything is going to be the same. People are, unfortunately, who live in Israel are going to continue and suffer, unfortunately, and I say, God forbid, all those families that it happens to them. You talk to the Fogel family, they don't hate Palestinians.
I know.
They hate the people who killed
That's correct.
their kids, you know. But they don't hate Palestinians.
So I can't let you go without talking for a moment about the other show. The show you've referenced already, Fiddler on the Roof. You've played Tevye.
Yeah,
Do you like the role?
I love it.
You know, it's an interesting story. The musical was made popular in part because it had a wonderful star on Broadway, Zero Mostel.
Yeah.
People love the show. They think it's a funny show. You know, it's the story about the tragedy of the Jewish people on many levels. This is Shalom Aleichem. He wrote with irony, sarcasm. We get thrown out of our home time and time again. That's why we always wear our hats. And in the end, it is the dissolution of tradition. The first daughter breaks it just a little bit.
Yeah, that's
She
right, of
marries
course.
somebody without her father's permission ahead of time. The second daughter marries someone who is an Am Haaretz, although a very good soul, but not someone steeped in Torah. And the third child marries a Russian from the Russian army. And Tevye has to watch it happen. And he says each time, do I accept it or not? And the third time he says, no, I will break if I accept this. And then, as we all know, in the very, very last scene, he says to Golda, tell her to be careful. Tell her she should be well.
Yeah, still his daughter.
He can't speak to her
She's still his
himself,
daughter.
but he wants to send a message. And then they leave, and he's left alone with his now remaining family. And he heads off to America, who knows where. And the fiddler, who represents tradition, follows along.
Right.
I was privileged to play Tevye for 7 weeks.
Oh,
And I said to the fiddler, in the last scene, when they walk off the stage, I'm going to tell you to stop for a moment, because I don't know, Tevye doesn't know, whether he wants you any longer. And then he'll say, come. And that's what this story is about. It's about the never-ending struggle within the Jewish community
that's right.
of a love of tradition, and at the same time saying to our children, be whatever you want to be.
Exactly.
But we hope you stay part of the family. So what does Dudu Fisher say?
Dudu Fisher say that every man, every woman should live to what they expect from life, to live their own life. The fact that I didn't play for Shabbat, you know, doesn't have that everybody has to stop working on Shabbat and doing this, you know. This is me. And this is exactly, I'm the one who tells the fiddle to come without hesitation.
That's right.
You know, if this is very, it's very true. I mean, that's what they teach us before we do. There are some people that tell the fiddle to stay away for a while, but they're still our own people. At the end, they will always call the fiddle to come back and to follow them. So I really think that that with everything that is happening to us, we're still one people, and it doesn't matter if you're Reform, if you're conservative, if you're Hasidic, or if you're ultra-Orthodox. We're one people. And I'll tell you something that I heard, a beautiful thing, you know. They say the Jewish people are like a hand. You know, this one is short and, you know, narrow. This one is a little bigger. This one is very big. This one is thick. And so every Jew is a different Jew. But when you put your hands together, when you put it to a fist, then we're all the same. We're all the same people. We're all equal, and nobody can break us, because then, if we're together, when we're together, we're like a fist.
You are out of this world. As a human being, as an artist, as a singer, as an entertainer. And I love your soul. And it is wonderful. I've looked forward to putting you in this chair for a long, long time. We've been together in other settings, but now I had a chance to talk to you. You are wonderful. I can't thank you enough for sharing so much of your heart. You've shared your music forever, but now you've given me your heart. I love you very, very much, Dudu. I wish you kol tu b'hatzlacha, you, your family. You continue to do great things, and we'll be together from time to time.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
very much. And that was our meeting with international singing star Dudu Fisher. I hope you enjoyed meeting him. As always, I invite you to be in touch with me this week. Please email me, write me, post on our Facebook wall, or tweet me. I look forward to hearing from you. Until the next time, I'm Mark Golub. Be well, my friends.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who can send a tax-deductible contribution of $36 or more to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media to help support our programming. Tax-deductible checks may be made out to GEM and mailed to GEM, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York, 10471. Please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD, and we thank you for your kind support.
L'chaim is a presentation of Jewish Education in Media.